Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. I like to call it the Atomic Playground. And today I'm going to talk about the top 5 reasons that you cannot blame Blair Walsh for losing the 2015 wildcard game between the Seattle Seahawks and the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, before we begin the top 5 reasons, I would like to explain why I'm making this video. If you can tell by my accent or not, I'm not from Minnesota. I'm from Georgia. And being from Georgia, I would like to defend a former Georgia Bulldog, and that being Blair Walsh. Blair Walsh, when he was in college, kicked for the Georgia Bulldogs. And so, therefore, that's the reason I would like to make this video. Because I do not think that loss between the Seahawks and the Vikings, where Blair Walsh missed the 27-yard field goal, is to be laid solely on Blair Walsh's doorstep at all. I think the blame should be spread, and therefore that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Okay, so being a Georgia boy and an Atlanta Falcon fan, and I know that some Minnesota Viking fans do not like to talk about the Atlanta Falcons, mainly because of that 1998 championship game, but we won't get into that right now. Let's get into the latest missed field goal, which was in the 2015 wild card game between the Seattle Seahawks and the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, first off, reason number 1. Okay, reason number 1, what I would like to title the house that Walsh built. And what do I mean by that? Okay, let's think about something. How many points were on the board when Blair Walsh attempted this field goal? There were 9. And that wasn't because of a touchdown and a safety. It was because of 3 field goals that Blair Walsh himself had kicked. Those were his points that he put on the board. This was his house that he built, and ultimately he burnt that house down. But the point is, he's the one that put those points on the board to begin with. And if he hadn't have done so, and he did so by kicking a 22, a 43, and a 47-yard field goal. And if those points are not on the board at that time in the game, then the Vikings do not have a chance to win in the first place. And I think that's a very good reason why you cannot blame Blair Walsh for this loss. Now, like I said, those were his points that he put on the board. When the field goal kicker kicks the field goal, those 3 points belong to him. When the offense scores a touchdown, 6 of those points belong to the offense, but the point after, that 1 point belongs to the kicker. My point is, Blair Walsh put you in a position to win at the end of the game. He just came up empty. But if he doesn't make those 3 field goals before, which is going to lead us to our number 2 reason, the reason that your offense could not score and could not get in the end zone, if he doesn't make those field goals, 2 of them are plus 40 yards, then you're not in a position to win at the end of the game to begin with. So, now, as I mentioned before, on to reason number 2. Reason number 2, an inept offense. What do I mean by an inept offense? Okay, simply this, an offense that couldn't score. It was anemic. Okay, if you just punch in 1 touchdown out of those 3 field goals that Blair Walsh kicked, when the one at the 22-yard line that he made, that was a red zone possession. If you punch that 1 possession in, that puts 4 more points on the board, and that would have made the score 13-10 at the time Walsh kicked the 27-yard field goal, and you're kicking to go up by 6 and forcing the Seahawks to get a touchdown to win the game. And with only 20-something seconds left, that would have been extremely difficult for them to do. So if your offense just punches it in 1 time, then we're talking about a completely different situation. At the time, you would not be kicking to go ahead. You would have already been ahead in the game, and you would have made life extremely difficult for Seattle to have to go all the way down the field and get a touchdown, a desperation touchdown, and that's just it. They would have had to get a touchdown. They would not have had the luxury of kicking a field goal to tie the game or win the game. They would have had to get a touchdown, and that would have been extremely difficult to do. If the Minnesota offense would have punched in 1 red zone possession, gotten at least 1 touchdown, that could have been the scenario. But you put your kicker in a position to where the whole world was on his shoulders, and it kind of wasn't fair. Okay, on to our number 3 reason. Okay, my third reason is simply this. Adrian Peterson. Okay, this is supposed to be, and he is, I do not disagree with the fact that he's the best running back in football. I don't disagree with that at all. But if you're the best running back in football, your superstar player on your team, the Minnesota Vikings, you got to come up big in playoff games. It's just as simple as that. You're the hero of this team. This is your team, basically. And so, therefore, you got to put it on your shoulders and lead them to victory. And what did Adrian Peterson do? He carried the ball for less than two yards a carry. I think about 47 yards or something like that on like 23 carries. That's less than 2 yards a carry. Got to do better than that, AP. Now, the last drive of the game for the Vikings, when they're driving down there to kick that field goal, that 27-yard field goal, AP was given the ball on third down. He came up a yard short of the first down. Now, if Adrian Peterson gets the first down right there and the Vikings have first and go, then they can take a shot or two at the end zone, and who knows what could have happened. But the point is, AP came up short when he was given the ball, and he could have redeemed himself from what I'm about to move on to. Reason number 4, which is Adrian Peterson's fumble. Now, some may agree or disagree with me on this. It did come with about 10 minutes in the game, but the Seahawks capitalized on it and turned it into points. And Adrian Peterson has had a problem fumbling the ball all season in 2015. He actually had 6 fumbles, I believe. And so, big game, he failed to hold on to the ball, and Cam Chancellor basically ripped it out of his arms, and it was basically lazy ball handling. So that would be my number 4 reason, is Adrian Peterson's fumble. And he was given, like I said, it was about 10 minutes left in the game at that point, and so he had plenty of time to redeem himself from that fumble, that mistake, but he just never did. Like I said, there on third down, he could have got that first down, could have been some redemption, but point is, Adrian Peterson did not come up big in a big game. Okay, now for my 5th and final reason why you can't blame Blair Walsh for the Vikings' loss in the 2015 wildcard game is simply the Legion of Boom and the Seattle Seahawks defense as a whole. They just simply shut Minnesota down, and they also did the same thing back in Week 13 when Seattle went to Minnesota when they beat them 38-7. So as a total in 2 games, the Seattle defense allowed 16 points in 2 games to Minnesota at Minnesota in their own stadium. And so the Legion of Boom and the Seattle defense handily handled the Minnesota Viking offense, and I think Teddy Bridgewater had something like 142 yards passing. AP, as we mentioned before, had like 45 yards rushing, and Minnesota's leading receiver, Diggs, he had like 26 yards. And so you have to credit the Seattle Seahawks defense. They shut the Minnesota offense down very, very handily and very, very efficiently. And Russell Wilson, his statistics weren't nothing to brag about either, but he made big plays when he had to, i.e. the fumbled snap that he turned into, it was almost turned into a touchdown. And so that would be my 5th reason. Okay, so that should wrap up my video, but what my point is that I want to make in this video is there's lots of blame to be spread around here, and it's not all to be laid at the doorstep of Blair Walsh. Blair Walsh, I guess, is being called the GOAT today, but he's actually the sacrificial lamb because, there's a lot of, blame that could be going around here, and it's not all his fault. He is basically the one that's... you can call him a sacrificial lamb or you can call him a scapegoat. But, the fact of the matter is there's lots of blame to be spread here. And one last thing before I go, as a consolation to Minnesota Viking fans, and like I mentioned earlier, I am an Atlanta Falcon fan. I'm not a Minnesota fan. But yesterday's loss could not be nowhere near as painful as this missed field goal.
Do you think Gary Anderson will make this field goal? The answer should probably be yes.
39 yards away, and it's not good.
So just keep that in mind. Yesterday's loss was bad. It was heartbreaking, and it will go down with the Gary Anderson missed field goal back in the 1998 NFC Championship game, but it wasn't as bad. You could probably look at the Gary Anderson miss that knocked the Vikings out of the Super Bowl as like Tony Montana's death in Scarface, where he was just riddled with bullets and he fell in the swimming pool, and it was just very brutal and bloody. And you can look at the Blair Walsh missed field goal as like maybe Joe Pesci's death in Goodfellas. He never saw it coming. It was quick. It was over with. And my point is, one was not as brutal as the other. And by the way, Minnesota Viking fans, could you please tell me what SKOL stands for? Kindly would like to know that. So I don't know if that's any consolation or not, but maybe it is. Okay, that's all for now. Please subscribe to my channel, The Atomic Playground, and thanks for watching my video, and goodbye and God bless. Thank you.